BJC expects Marks and Associates to know everything there is to know about your company. And you might say, why? So Arthur, let's go back to my slides. Cave and Swan isn't here today because at 10 o'clock, they're evaluating some bids over at the PMO. And his job as the construction executive for the construction, for the campus renewal project, is to aggressively promote your firms to the project. Not passively, not occasionally, but I would beg to differ with anyone that would say that Marks and Associates isn't aggressively promoting your firm, because that's our job. BJC said, I need you to make sure we know who the firms are, who's interested in doing business. Everybody isn't interested in doing business with BJC. That's okay. We have a room full of people here who are. But who's interested, who's taking the time to get to know us, and who should we be taking the time to get to know, and how are we going to utilize them on this project? So when we're focused today on the kind of data that we need, I need you to understand when we're asking for this data, when we ask for it for the warehouse, or when Carrie sends out the updates that are needed for the toolbox, it's because that's the only way we can aggressively promote you. If I'm talking to BJC about a company in the warehouse, and I'm talking to them about a project that you did 3 years ago, how effective can I be when I should be telling them about a project you're doing right now? So today we're going to spend a little time looking at your quick fact sheet. But Carrie, if you could stand, I want to make sure, I want you to stand. Carrie Less, who you should know if you're in the toolbox, is the one that asks for the same type of information, but in much more detail, of toolbox firms. And even though there are annual updates or periodic updates, you don't wait for an update to give Carrie the update. Part of what we're going to be talking about today is that anytime you have a change in certain information, you should shoot that to her right then. So the first thing is a quick fact sheet. I need you to understand that this is just that. BJC, as a matter of fact, it was one of the first things that Greg Moeller put us to task with, was that he recognized that the toolbox application, which is much more lengthy than the quick fact sheet, and only for firms that are in either architecture, engineering, construction management, or MEP, or fire protection. Only those categories would ever fill out a toolbox application. So Greg said, how am I going to find out about all the other specialty contractors that we should know without having them fill out the entire toolbox application? He also said, how am I going to find out about the firms that are emerging at BJC? You may have been in the industry for a long time, but emerging at BJC means that BJC currently may not know about you or know about you as well as they should. So he said, let's create a quick fact sheet. And Greg and his team, along with our team, went through the toolbox application and scrubbed every question that we really didn't need to know right away. And we came up with a one-page quick fact sheet that's before you. And it's a few quick facts about your company so that we can at least make sure BJC is aware of you. Now, how many of you all attended Arthur's relationship building workshop that we had maybe 4 months ago? He talked about the 4 stages of a relationship, and the first one was aware. He said the first stage is that people just know you exist. So the the warehouse quick fact sheet says, BJC, I'm here. But it also says, in BJC, I want you to know me. So there are some firms that we send the quick fact sheet back to, and then they make a decision, I guess, and say, no, I'm not really ready to talk to BJC. I'm not interested in healthcare at this time, and that's fine. We'll be reaching out to firms for the next 8 years or more, however long it takes. But so far, there are 110 minority and women-owned firms, you all and any others that didn't make it today, who are in the BJC warehouse. There are an additional 20 minority and women-owned firms that are in the toolbox. That means Marks & Associates has a client list of 122 firms. Got it? And how many of you all received my newsletter last month for the first time? Very beautiful blue newsletter called Are You Capable Yet? Yes, several of you did, and several of you opened it. Because guess what? I can see who opened my newsletter, and several of you all hurt my feelings, and you didn't open my newsletter. But that's okay, because you're going to get another one this month, and you're going to get them every month. In that newsletter, that's me letting you know how many firms are in the warehouse, how many firms have gotten contracts so far, how many firms are in the toolbox, who got added, who's deleted, whatever. So we're communicating with you through various means. This is a quarterly session, but we're trying to create a way to communicate with you constantly. And I'm going to show you, Arthur's going to show you how we've done that. So a quick fact sheet is the first thing. I'm going to come back to that. But the second thing that's important is that you need to know that every one of you all has a folder in the warehouse. Now, you do know there's a physical warehouse at 625 North Euclid. That's our offices. Several of you all have been there several times. But you're welcome to come in, and typically we ask you to call us and say you want to come by. That's my office, and it's also the office of Marvin's company, CMP, or Construction Management Partners. We exist in that office because it brings a lot of synergy to the fact that we're working together on the BJC project already. So typically, firms come in and meet with Marvin if they're talking about overall growth and talking specifically maybe about some non-campus renewal projects. Caven does a lot of his meetings coming out to your location as well as meeting at the PMO, the Project Management Office. And you all know where that office is, correct? If you don't, you're going to know it by heart after the sessions that we're going to have over the next 10 weeks. So you have your quick fact sheet, but then every line on that quick fact sheet, most of them, we need backup information. Because typically BJC asks me or Carrie or Bill, if I give them some information, they say, do you have the documentation for that? Do you have the backup for that information? So I need to make sure you know that even though it's a quick fact sheet, your OneNote, are you all familiar with OneNote? Anybody use OneNote here? It's basically Microsoft, and it's an electronic folder. So each one of you all has a folder, and we're trying to fill that folder up. But I can't fill it up if you're not talking to me. So I'm going to tell you again how you'll help us to get that. That moves you from aware to knowledge. Remember we said that the second stage of a relationship is that not only somebody is aware of you, they actually know you. So there's a difference in being aware and knowing. And the only way that we can make sure that BJC, ACW, the PMO, the various organizations or other firms that are in the toolbox are knowledgeable about you is for us to have more than a quick fact sheet. Because if all I have is a quick fact sheet, they can call the DB program office and get that. But I need to have more detail. And again, you'll see when I go back through the quick fact sheet. Then Arthur said the third stage, and the stage we really want to get to of a relationship, is that people like you. Remember we talked about that? And it sounds corny, but it's true. The fact of the matter is, you can put all kind of beautiful bid packages together and everything else, but we all know that if people don't like you, and like meaning they like your company, they like the way you do things, they like the way you as an owner lead, they can always figure out a way not to do business with you. It's just nature. I'm that way, aren't you? So it's just nature. So how do we know how to help you build your relationship beyond knowledge to like? Well, the first thing is we have to know who do you currently have relationships with. So you all know that ACW stands for Alberici, Clayco, Wilson. That's a three organization alliance. So a great way to know what your relationship probably is looking like with ACW would be to say, what's your relationship with Alberici, Clayco, and Wilson? Do they like you? I don't mean like you, like, oh, I love golfing with them, they're so much fun. People can do all that with you and still not like you. Like is only evident, in my opinion, as it relates to this arena when we're actually, interacting. Now, it's not always getting a contract, it's getting the opportunity to even talk about a project. That's where you want to be. Getting opportunities is the first stage. You win some, you lose some. And as a matter of fact, Arthur already taught us that you never lose, you learn. You guys got to have Arthur's workshops down. You never lose, you learn. But you're going to have in this tool I'm about to demonstrate for you and that we've talked about before, a relationship matrix that we're going to ask you to fill out over the next few weeks, where we've already pre-populated it with a few firms that we know, based on us knowing BJC so well, that we figure, you should probably have a good relationship with these particular firms. But then also, you know who you should have a relationship with. And we're going to ask you to tell us. Because part of our job as we're promoting you is to also try to look at great opportunities to team up people. Well, why would we team you up with someone that you're telling us you currently don't feel you have a good relationship with? That's not effective use of our time or yours. By the same token, if you have certain firms that you have great relationships with, you're doing a lot of business together, you've had a lot of repeat business with that contractor, you all are working on existing projects, I'd like to know that. Because then that can leverage all across BJC. So the only way I'm going to know that is a relationship matrix. Not having lunch. People call, Sandra, let's get together and have lunch. I said, why are you guys trying to make me fat? Do you see, I don't need to go to lunch all the time. I want to talk, but there are all kind of ways. And the first way for me is that you complete these forms so I can get you where you need to be. Because it'd be great to have lunch with me, but Sandra D Marks doesn't sign one contract, doesn't make one decision about how to do any project out at BJC. We are influencers. We're motivators. We don't make any decision about who gets a contract. None of us do. So the people who do, that's who I want you to talk to. So you go from aware to knowledgeable to they like you. And we need to know where you stand there. So you're going to tell us. The last stage Arthur talked about is a stage that's when you're doing repeat business and everything's natural. That means that they trust you. So we need to know from your perception, who do you feel you have a trusting relationship with? Which contractors? And who do you feel there needs to be some work done because you're not seeing that? And that's, when we say internal assessment, that's you telling us that I have a wonderful trusting relationship with Mike Hayes. But then guess what? I'm going to ask him. And he might say, who? Who'd you say that was? Who'd you say said it? When did we meet? That then tells me, oh, I got some work to do. One thinks one thing, the other thing. So we're doing an internal and external assessment of the relationship so that, again, we can have a plan. Because once the relationships happen, Valerie, if you haven't met Valerie Larkin, who's the PMO representative, said to me, she said, Sandra, the best relationships we've seen, she calls them, they grow organically. And I said, you're right. She says, in other words, nobody forced it. Nobody forced the two people together. They started doing business, and it just grew organically, naturally. They come back to us and say, look what we've just come up with together. They said, those are the ones that we don't have any problem with. But when you find yourself in a situation where the two really aren't, they really never got past aware, and now they're trying to do business. It's very difficult sometimes. I'm sure all of you all have been in that situation. So it's our job to move you to that. But you see that when we get into this trust factor, we start talking about your employees. Because at the end of the day, most of you I haven't seen out the job site. I have pictures of the projects, and Dee, I haven't seen you out there. Where's your hard hat? I haven't seen you. I don't see you all out on the job sites. I see your employees. They're the people that are your face. That's who's representing you to BJC. So you need to make sure that BJC, ACW, PMO trust your employees, because that's who you're leaving in place. And that's the stage of leadership that you're really going to talk about a lot today, servant leadership. It's great that you're going to know everything there is to know about BJC. But in 2015, we are now going to ask you to transfer your knowledge to your key employees. So I'm going to give you a quick hint on the first quiz that you're going to take next week. And it's going to be fun. Don't get nervous. but there is a grade, and I'm the teacher. But it's not hard at all. There are 13 hospitals. Am I right, Greg? BJC, we got to change it. We messed up already. Well, we're going to fix that, but it's 12 now. There are 12 hospitals that BJC has. So you'll know that. And after the quiz that we have next week, you'll know the name of all 12 if you don't already know it. That's great that you know it, but wouldn't it be nice if the person you have in charge of business development knows it too? That's the person that really needs to know it, right? Because they're supposed to be, and they don't just need to know that Missouri Baptist is one of BJC's hospitals. They need to know who is at Missouri Baptist. You all asked Greg about how would you find out about projects and who's been shortlisted to bid on those projects. You have to talk to us. He just told you, so you got to talk to them. This is a private organization. No, it's not going to be in the paper. It wouldn't normally be on a website. Hey, everybody, we're getting ready to do a project. You would talk to us, and we would tell you. And we tell you one-on-one in many cases because it's your business whether you choose to come to a pre-bid or whether you make a decision to do that or not. As you've already been involved in ACW, I'm sure, you know that ACW has their own pre-qualification process, and every time we've had pre-bids, you get invitations, and you typically get those invitations from ACW. Have you all experienced that already? So you're all getting invitations from ACW. But then often we turn around and call firms and say, are you coming to the pre-bid? Make sure you send somebody. Have you gotten those calls? Have people gotten those calls from us? Nagging you to death? No? Yes? Yes. If you haven't, let us know. But typically, if you're on the list for a particular type of division of work that they're doing, not only are you getting a solicitation from ACW, we're turning around and calling and saying, did you get that? Are you coming? Can you make it? And in some cases, somebody might say, Sandra, it's on the same time and date as something else. And then we say, well, can you send somebody else, or can you make sure that you don't miss that? Because most of these, I think, are they all mandatory? Pre-bids are mandatory. So you don't come to the pre-bid, then you can't bid. Or not all the time, Carrie said. Depends. Depends on the scope. Right, okay, so it depends on the scope. So you want to make sure when you're getting those solicitations that are coming through, I think it's called Smart, what's your system? You should make sure you're paying attention to those and that you let us know if you're not getting them. The intent is that if you're an architect or engineer, you've got to get whoever the person is to be aware of you, be knowledgeable of you, and whether you like it or not, to like you. Not like you personally, like the company and what your company can do and all that type of stuff. And so that is our job. A&E firms are different. A consulting firm, I'm different. I wish I had a customer that put RFPs out, but that's not how my business works. I got to get in, find out what's happening. They start thinking that I'm pretty smart. Next thing you know, I get an opportunity. But I don't have the open door that construction has, so you're right. But there is a difference. But your plan is you telling us what you have and have not seen happen yet this year, so that we can make that happen. So those are the 4 phases that we're trying to take you through this information. So let's look at your quick fact sheet. What I'm going to ask you to do in the next 5 minutes is your quick fact sheet is what information we have in our system. And I'm going to go down very quickly. If any information in here is not correct, I need you either to put a mark through, because you're going to turn these back in. So you can't leave without giving these back. So you either need to put a mark through it and say incorrect, meaning that we're going to come back and ask you to correct it. If you already know the correct answer, put the answer. So if I said you had 3 employees and you have 6, change it right now. If we have an email address for you that is not the right person to be talking to about bids, change it right now. Or put an X through it and say, need to correct it, and we'll get it from you later. This information has to be accurate, because otherwise I am misrepresenting you.